The target is mobile. I need confirmation on the lockdown status now. We are running out of time.
Someone once said, in the music industry, you don't have enemies. You have people waiting for the right moment. In hip-hop, success is loud, but danger is silent. Over the last decade, countless rising artists have been robbed, ambushed, set up, or killed, not by strangers, but by people close enough to call family. Crew members, friends, business partners, sometimes even blood. Most cases never get the attention they deserve, because behind every tragedy there's something more powerful than truth. Politics silence fear. But today, we step into one of the most haunting stories the culture still can't forget. A story that shook hip-hop. A story that exposed the dangers of fame in a digital age. A story where success didn't protect a young artist. It marked him. This isn't fiction. This is Pop Smoke. He was 20 years old. Young, gifted, and unstoppable, with a voice that sounded older than his age, a sound New York hadn't heard in years. His rise wasn't slow, it was explosive. Clubs, radios, TikTok. Everywhere you turned, his music was there. But fame doesn't come alone. It brings jealousy. It brings attention. It brings predators. And Pop Smoke felt it. In interviews, he laughed, but people noticed something beneath the confidence. A quiet awareness, a sense that the world wasn't just watching him grow, it was watching him fall. February 19th, 2020, Los Angeles. Pop Smoke was renting a home, a luxury spot in the Hollywood Hills, that a place meant for creativity, privacy, and celebration. But one mistake changed everything. A photo posted online, flexing success, revealed more than jewelry or designer clothing. It revealed an address. Hours later, masked intruders entered the house. What followed wasn't just a robbery. IT was a moment that would echo through hip-hop history. When news broke the next morning, fans couldn't process it. Pop Smoke, gone. Social media flooded with heartbreak. This can't be real. Not him. He was just getting started. And somewhere in that wave of grief came a voice everyone recognized. 50 Cent, not claiming to know what happened. Not claiming to solve anything, just reacting like someone who saw potential and hated seeing it wasted. He was special, 50 said. He would have been big, really big. In the days that followed, rumors swirled. Jealousy, robbery, betrayal, setup. Nobody knew what to believe. But one thing was undeniable. Pop Smoke's death wasn't just a loss. It was a warning. As the public struggled to make sense of it, authorities launched their investigation. Evidence began to form a timeline, messages, social media activity, phone pings. Eventually, arrests were made. 2 adults and multiple juveniles were charged. Still, even with names and charges, the public felt uneasy. The motive didn't match the violence. Why take a life when so much was left behind? Why risk everything over what appeared to be a robbery gone wrong? Something didn't add up. Those questions led to a darker realization. Sometimes a tragedy isn't one crime. Sometimes it's a chain created by exposure, envy, access, and timing. While the world mourned, 50 Cent made a decision, one that is documented. He helped finish Pop Smoke's album. Not for profit, not for clout, for legacy. He said, if you're going to do it right. The album released and instantly became a cultural moment. Not just music, a reminder of what could have been. And yet, with every stream, every tribute, every replay, one question refused to disappear. Why does this keep happening? Why do so many young rappers rise, only fall violently before reaching their peak? Pop Smoke, Nipsey Hussle, XXXTentacion, King Von, different cities, different stories, same ending. As more rappers spoke out, a chilling reality formed. It wasn't always random. Sometimes fame painted target. Sometimes success made someone dangerous to envy. Sometimes one post, one address, one betrayal was all it took. And the industry, it kept moving. Tours continued. Contracts rolled. Streams rose. Life went on, but fans never forgot. Because Pop Smoke wasn't just another name. He was proof that talent alone doesn't protect someone. Sometimes it makes them vulnerable. And now, years later, a final question hangs over the story, heavier than any headline. Was Pop Smoke killed because of a mistake, or because someone wanted the life he was building? And if that's true, how many more artists are one wrong post away from the same fate? The story isn't over. Not for fans, not for hip-hop, not for the next young star rising right now, unaware who's watching. Because in this world, success is a price, and someone is always willing to collect it. When Pop Smoke died, the world saw the headlines, the tributes, the hashtags. But what most people didn't see was what happened behind closed doors. Because the music industry didn't just lose an artist, it lost an investment, a narrative, and a rising power someone wasn't ready for. And when that happens, people don't mourn first. They calculate. In the days after Pop Smoke's passing, meetings were happening. Not in studios or clubs, but in boardrooms. Executives sat with straight faces, silent phones, and spreadsheets glowing under cold fluorescent lights. Money was still moving. Contracts still existed. Unfinished music was now priceless. Some saw tragedy. Others saw opportunity. His music stream skyrocketed overnight. Labels saw a surge they couldn't stop, even if they tried. Artists posted emotional messages. Some real, some performative. Because in entertainment, grief sometimes looks like marketing. And that's the part nobody wants to talk about. While the world processed loss, one artist made sure Pop Smoke wouldn't become just another echo in hip-hop. 50 Cent. He wasn't Pop Smoke's manager, nor his label boss. But he was someone who recognized something rare and refused to let it disappear. He stepped forward to help finish the album. Not because he had to, but because he felt Pop's legacy needed protecting. In interviews, he spoke with frustration, calling out laziness, delays, excuses. If you care, finish the work, he said bluntly. Behind the scenes, pushback existed. Some people didn't want certain songs released. Some wanted to change direction. Some saw Pop Smoke's voice as a product, and products get edited, reshaped, commercialized. But 50 pushed for authenticity, not a softened version, not a radio-safe blueprint. He wanted Pop's sound, raw, gritty, unapologetic, exactly the way fans discovered him. And that mattered, because legacies aren't just built on greatness. They're built on truth. When the album finally dropped, the response was massive. Charts moved. Fans connected. Even people who never listened to drill music began paying attention. Pop Smoke wasn't just an artist anymore. He became a symbol of rising potential, of cultural momentum, of a future that never arrived. That kind of legacy changes things. Suddenly, artists looked at fame differently. It wasn't just tours, chains, and magazine covers anymore. It was paranoia, security, silence. Some rappers stopped posting locations. Some stopped wearing flashy jewelry publicly. Some stopped traveling without large entourages or private security. For the first time in years, the industry paused and asked, is success worth the danger? But while the culture shifted, something darker started brewing online. Fans began forming their own theories. Threads, videos, speculation. Who knew what? Who was there? Who benefited? Some theories seemed wild. Some felt uncomfortably logical. And somewhere in all of that, a deeper question surfaced. Was Pop Smoke's death just a tragic moment, or part of a familiar pattern? Because before him, other rising artists fell too quickly. After him, even more followed. Different names, different cities, same blueprint. Young, promising, targeted. The industry didn't say it out loud, but it felt like a storm repeating itself. One rapper in Brooklyn said it best. It's like we're watching the same movie, over and over again. Today, Pop Smoke's legacy lives in more than music. It lives in caution, in awareness, in the uncomfortable reality that talent doesn't guarantee a future. Sometimes it accelerates the risk. And even though arrests were made, even though answers exist on paper, fans still ask the same chilling question. If Pop Smoke had lived long enough, who would he become? A superstar, a cultural leader, a mogul, or someone the industry couldn't control? Because sometimes the scariest part of the story isn't how it ended. It's imagining what was supposed to happen next. There's a moment right after someone dies where shock turns into silence. And in that silence, patterns start to appear. When Pop Smoke passed, people grieved. But after the grieving came something else. Recognition. Because the story didn't stand alone. It sounded familiar, almost rehearsed. In the last few years, hip-hop has experienced losses at a pace no other genre has seen. Young Dolph, XXXTentacion, PNB Rock, King Von, Nipsey Hussle, Takeoff. Different cities, different situations, different motives. But when fans lined them up, quietly, privately, something eerie emerged. Each artist was on the verge of leveling up, going independent, starting a label, owning publishing, building generational wealth. And every time an artist got close to real autonomy, something stopped them. Sometimes it was violence, sometimes legal trouble, sometimes sudden, silent fallouts. Some people say that's just life. Others say, no pattern happens this many times by accident. Pop Smoke's case became a reference point, a warning, a code whisper behind the industry curtain. Move smarter. Keep your circle tight. Not everyone cheering is loyal. And the strangest part? Artists weren't just worried about strangers. They were worried about people they once fed, people they trusted, people who watched them grow, and resented every step, because betrayal hits hardest when it comes from someone close enough to say, "Bro, send me the address." Some insiders began talking openly, not pointing fingers, but asking uncomfortable questions. Why do some artists blow up fast and then disappear even faster? Why are so many crimes labeled robbery, yet motive doesn't match behavior? Why does footage go missing? Why do charges stall? Why do cases go quiet? Nobody answers those questions on record. But off record, people talk. They talk about jealousy in the age of social media. They talk about the blurred line between fans and predators. They talk about how fame amplifies everything. Love, hate, threats, motives. And they talk about how the industry thrives on replacement. If one artist falls, another fills a space. The machine keeps moving. One veteran manager, never naming names, once said something chilling. The industry doesn't destroy artists, but it doesn't protect them either. And maybe that's the real truth. Maybe this isn't a conspiracy. Maybe it's negligence. A system built for profit, not people. But then, why does it feel intentional? Why does it feel like someone or something benefits every time a rising artist disappears? After Pop Smoke's album released, his name became immortal. Not in the way the world wanted, but in the way tragedy creates myths. He became a voice frozen in time, a symbol, a reminder. People said he would have changed the game, but we'll never know. And that uncertainty, that unknown future, haunts the culture because it forces a question. How many artists are walking the same path right now, unaware that time is running out? And here's where things get even darker. Some fans believe the pattern isn't stopping. They believe it's accelerating. New artists rise faster. Attention grows quicker. Threats appear sooner. And the industry? Still silent. Still moving. Still replacing. Which brings us here to the question the series can't avoid. Are these tragedies random? Or are artists being watched the moment they become valuable? Because if they are, then Pop Smoke wasn't just another case. He was a checkpoint, a turning point, a moment where hip-hop started asking, who's next and why? Someone once said, when a legend dies, the silence speaks louder than the tributes. And in hip-hop, that silence, it's never accidental. After the news broke, after social feeds flooded with shock, RIP posts, and disbelief, something strange started happening behind the scenes. The phone calls slowed. Collaborations disappeared. People who once bragged about being close suddenly acted like they barely knew him. It wasn't disrespect. It was fear, because rumors weren't just circulating. They were multiplying. Some people whispered jealousy. Others said retaliation. And a few, the bold ones, hinted at industry politics. But nobody said anything on record. Not because they didn't know, but because they knew too much. The fans didn't forget, but the industry moved quiet. Outside the labels and boardrooms, the streets were loud. Conspiracy threads, YouTube breakdowns, interviews resurfacing, lyrics being reread with new meaning. Fans weren't just mourning, they were connecting dots the industry hoped would fade. But on the corporate end, press statements were short. Legal teams were active. PR departments worked overtime to shift attention to the next release, the next tour, the next viral moment. Because that's how it works. Tragedy isn't the ending. It's absorbed, sanitized, and monetized. Albums went up in streams. Unreleased tracks were suddenly urgent business. The legacy became a product. But behind that polished rollout, people were arguing. Producers fighting over credits. Managers claiming ownership. Former associates resurfacing with questionable contracts, messages, or proof of involvement in key projects. Everyone wanted a piece, not because they cared, but because legacy means money. And then something even stranger happened. People connected to the artist started avoiding interviews. Some deleted old posts. A few left social media entirely. And one former associate, someone who used to brag about being in the inner circle, reportedly left the country just weeks after everything happened. No charges, no accusations, just disappeared. And the timing? Too perfect to ignore. But here's where things shift. Months later, something unexpected happened. A vault of unheard music, demos, drafts, reference tracks, was found. Not in a studio, not with a family, but allegedly in the possession of someone who shouldn't have had anything. Suddenly, lawyers got involved. Rights were questioned. Ownership became a legal battlefield. Because now the question wasn't just who took his life. It became who is still profiting from it. A legacy turned into a power struggle. Labels blamed managers. Managers blamed business partners. Business partners blamed the streets. And yet, nobody could answer the simplest question. How did everything fall apart so fast? And so many people benefit from the aftermath. At one executive meeting, according to someone who later leaked details, a chilling statement was made. We don't need closure. We need control. Think about that. Not justice, not accountability, not truth. Control. Control the narrative. Control the catalog. Control the story history will remember. Because sometimes the greatest power isn't in what's said, but in what's erased. And here's the twist. Someone didn't stay silent. Just when it looked like everything was going to disappear behind contracts, non-disclosure agreements, and corporate statements, a documentary pitch leaked. Not from press, not from a random blogger, but from someone close enough to know the unreleased tracks, the real beefs, the messages that never made it public. Someone who wasn't trying to protect anyone. Someone who wanted everything exposed. Names, deals, conflicts, and the timeline leading to his final months. That leak changed everything. People started lawyering up. Some attempted to shut the project down. And others, people who once stayed quiet, suddenly wanted to talk. Not because they found courage, but because they smelled opportunity. So now the question isn't just what happened then. It's what happens next. Because if this documentary moves forward, if old footage, recordings, and messages surface, if people in powerful positions are named, then everything changes. The story isn't over. If anything, this is the moment the story stops being a tragedy and becomes a reckoning. Because someone out there knows the truth. Someone out there holds the missing pieces. And sooner or later, those pieces won't stay hidden. So the final question, the one nobody wants to face, is this: when the truth finally comes out, will the world mourn him again? Or will it expose something even darker, something that was never meant to be uncovered